Hi gamers, my name is Joy Rasul. I have no idea what it is a lovely day for, and this is my review of We Happy Few.
Lovely day for it. Unfortunately, the bridge is not open at this time.
We Happy Few has had a development back and forth for a very long time. I remember playing the alpha back in 2016, and when it started as a Kickstarter with 7,000 backers, we were very excited about this game from Compulsion. The aesthetic mimicked BioShock and their previous game Contrast, and the premise of this dystopian UK was very compelling. First thing I want to say about this game is that it's very British. Oh my god, is it British. And I'm not making fun of it. In fact, you know, I'm allowed to say anything that I'm about to say here because I'm British too.
Well, why didn't you see that before?
You play as Arthur Hastings, a quiet, mild-mannered censor worker who is all of a sudden thrust out into the Garden District where the wastrels and downers live. These are the people that have stopped taking their joy, a pill that is supposed to keep everyone happy all the time. Regardless of side effects like memory loss, everyone in Wellington should be taking their joy, and this is enforced heavily, so if you stop taking your joy, out you go. This entire world is overseen by a live-action man known as Uncle Jack. We rarely see live-action actors integrated so well into a game, and Julian Casey does a tremendous job. Now this is something that hasn't changed about the game over its years of development. Indeed, the first cinematic trailer that we ever saw was local law enforcement realizing that you would stop taking your joy and chasing you through the streets. But now we fall into this first-person stealth survival resource management game. There is a combat system in this game, but it's not how you're going to be the most effective. Arthur's main tools at his disposal are going to be about blending in. It's about changing your clothes to fit your environment.
I'm assuming, of course, that you're decently dressed, huh?
It's about strategically taking joy to get by sensors. And when all else fails, you can always just
have a sit down.
There is a lot to this game, and it has certainly changed since it went into early access 2 years ago. Earlier versions were all about resource management and survival, to the point where progression almost became impossible. This has taken lessons from that and started to really push the story forward.
Arthur? Arthur Hastings!
Lovely day for it.
Don't you lovely day for it me, you idiot. It's me, Sally!
You follow Arthur as he's trying to get out of Wellington and reach his brother Percy, who as a child was shipped off to Germany. In this dystopian, alternate reality England, Arthur is doing his best to blend in and not make a fuss. And this is the concept that hooked us all a long time ago, but the real thing that I want to talk about now is how the game actually plays, the mechanics, how does the progression work? I will say crafting in this is actually a lot of fun. Every item has unique names and little side notes that all have a little one-liner joke in them, and some of the things you can craft are really unique. Ultimately, Arthur is a lover, not a fighter, but that doesn't mean he can't swing an electroshock umbrella. You have plenty of stats to keep on top of beyond health. There's the amount of joy in your system, whether you're on a withdrawal or an overdose, your thirst, your hunger, sickness, bleeding, and you have to counter all of these things. They're all interesting mechanics, but I recommend stepping your difficulty down a level from what you normally do, only because some of these are very unique and it takes a while to get used to. While you're not trying to upset anybody, one of the main ways you're going to gather resources is by looting houses. This is one of my first problems with the games. A lot of these houses are not actually enterable, and the ones that are enterable look almost no different, apart from the fact that it says open when you walk up to the door. There are many different ways that the residents of Wellington can tell that there's something not quite right about you, whether it be the way you're dressed or how sick you look, or some people can even tell if you haven't had your joy. This means that there's a lot of things that you need to keep track of, or you're gonna find yourself being run out of town over and over again. There is a day-night cycle system in the game that comes into play in the form of curfews. At night, all good citizens of Wellington are in bed, but sometimes you have a story mission that ends at night. To get to the next story mission, you have to traverse the town undetected or find a good place to hole up and take a nap. I get where this makes sense in the story, but sometimes it really hinders progression and it takes a lot of the joy out of things.
Best be indoors after nightfall, sir.
There's a lot of back and forth between different regions in the game because some items can only be found in certain regions. That wouldn't be a problem if you didn't need to change your outfit every single time and change the way you're interacting with people. Again, it fits the story terribly well, but after you do it a dozen times, it becomes a little tedious. One of the things that relieves the monotony, though, is the humor. For me, the humor in this is right up my alley, but you know what they say about British humor, it's just, it's not for everybody. Characters in here are well-written, witty, and just fun to talk to. Most of the generic NPCs on the street, though, repeat the same dozen things over and over again, which wouldn't be a big deal if you didn't have to talk to them to quell suspicions of you.
Lovely day for it.
Fancy a cuppa?
There is a lot in this game, however. A straight up narrative playthrough is probably going to be around 30 hours. This includes playing through Arthur's story and then moving on to 2 other playable characters. Sally and Ollie each go on their own narrative adventures after the events of Arthur's story. And to get a little idea of how they're going to play, you meet them in Arthur's playthrough. As you're no doubt aware by now, this game has a very interesting and unique aesthetic. What's so fun is that aesthetic changes depending on what drugs you're on. If you're on joy, then butterflies surround you. Everything looks bright and shiny. When people yell at you, it sounds like they're laughing. When you're on a withdrawal, everything looks dark and dreary and depressing. And of course, sometimes you realize that the eyes are watching you. Also, did I mention this game was British? If you're a fan of British humor, then there are plenty of references throughout this game that you will find.
Now we see the violence inherent in the system.
I recommend playing with a pack rat mentality, collecting all the bits and bobs you can, and storing them in your pneumatic storage, because occasionally you need to create items for story quests. And if you don't have the ingredients for that item, it all of a sudden takes a long time to find them. Be sure to loot payphones to find Sovereign and find the stores in every map, because looting is not the only way to get items. Also, when you find a shelter, be sure to open the tunnel hatch so that you can fast travel between it and other shelters. One of the great things I love about this game is the immersion when it comes to the audio. The music is amazing, especially the diegetic music that is playing from old 45-speed records lying around. One of the things that is a little off about the game is that plenty of items are one-time use, including digital hacking devices. Personally, this is going to be one of the games that I am going to play long after reviewing it, and now that Compulsion Games is under Microsoft, I'm excited to see some DLC as well. Though the in-between stuff can get repetitive at times, the game is certainly pretty and the story is fun and engaging. The biggest thing to get your head around for playing this game is that you are playing as a regular citizen. You don't have special abilities when it comes to fighting or hiding. But that being said, everyone else in Wellington Wells is pretty hopped up on joy and makes them a little less perceptive. This game has some really interesting stuff below the surface level. Be sure to read through the notes and listen into some of the conversations for some really funny and interesting stuff. Occasionally it's going to feel like you don't want to push forward because it's so hard to allay suspicion after being found out as a downer. But I recommend you save often and keep pushing through because the reward is worth it. Also, be sure to try out some of the unique items because there are plenty of different ways to tackle a situation than you might originally think. Finally, that Rose of Gilead, be sure to stock up on that because it is super useful. It's the only way to make healing bombs and it doesn't exist in later maps. Or it does, but a whole lot less. All in all, I give the game an 8 out of 10. The story and characters are compelling and fun, but there are just a few too many things that get repetitive. That's it for me. I'm off to drink some tea and have a good sit down. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JoyRassool, RASSOOL, and be sure to check out more reviews from Collider Games.
May I express my delight that you passed the examination, sir?